Williams, and I am also on this time slot to speak with you about Weaver's wisdom. Well, okay, Weavers in the room, wave your hands. Look how many Weavers we have in the room. And so what I had planned on in this time slot was the film is 35 minutes, and it's a beautiful film. I'll give you a little couple of outtakes on it. There's at one point in the film where Dolores is in the collections of the museum, and she's looking for a particular small basket, a particular small spruce root basket. And if any of you have been in museum collections, they keep them in great big file drawers. And so Dolores is going in a great big hurry, opening drawer after drawer in a big hurry, trying to find again one particular small basket that she would like to see again. And in the middle of it all, my favorite outline, my one-liner favorite from the whole movie is she pauses momentarily at all these beautiful drawer full of ancient old baskets. She says, "Oh my, it puts me back into kindergarten." And that's the way we feel. It doesn't matter if you have woven one small tiny project, or you're like Clarissa who's woven multiple robes. We all feel that way. Clarissa told me a story about Jenny Glenault, who she learned from Cluck Wan, and that Jenny would laugh when people called her a master weaver. Sorry. I'm still going to just keep chatting while they're setting up, if you don't mind. And Jenny would laugh at that because we don't call ourselves masters. No matter how long we've been doing it or how short of a time we've been doing it, there's ever so much more to learn. Every time we go to do a new weaving project, we learn something. And so that terminology of a master weaver, like currently in Alaska, there's a program to teach new artists that's called the Master Apprenticeship Program. And that's when I got my start with Clarissa. I was the apprentice, but Clarissa would just turn red in the face and go, "No, no, no, I'm not your master." It's kind of a silly terminology, but it's what happens when you blend cultures. Are we ready? Okay, we're ready for the movie. Sit back and enjoy. It's 35 minutes long. I just have to say that that was a beautiful film. I've watched it and watched it and watched it, and every time I watch it, I see more depth in it. And thank you to our younger generation that knows how to operate technology. Yay!
How do you eject on a non-Mac?
Okay. So
on the side over the.
So on the program, I'm listed as presenting about Weaver's wisdom. And when I sent in the proposal, I titled it Esoteric Weaver's Wisdom. And the word esoteric I came across when I was going to school at the Institute of American Indian Arts. And my professor threw up his hands and said, "I don't know, Suzie, your work is too esoteric for me." And I said, "What does that mean? What is that word? What does that word mean?" And so it turns out that the word esoteric means it's a body of knowledge that is only understood by a very small group of people. And so that is what I wanted to talk about, the knowledge that the weavers have that is shared amongst the small group of people. And it's the wisdom, because it's wisdom. We all know what wisdom is. Wisdom is smart. Wisdom is ageless. Wisdom is able to stand alone. And so when we learn the techniques of weaving, there's many other things that we learn along with it. Now, when Clarissa first started teaching me, And she told me 3 things. She said, well, actually 4 things, pardon me, 4 things. The first one is you want to be careful who you choose to teach, because you don't ever want to teach anybody who's going to get a big head. And Dolores alluded to this in the film right at the beginning when she said her interest in tracing the roots of this hat was not because she wanted to publish a paper or get ahead of anybody or to elevate herself, because she wanted to get a big head over it, basically, is what she was saying. And this is why I did kind of facetiously refer to her as the Empress, because we say, oh, she's the queen, but empresses are above queens. And yet, as the film demonstrated, Dolores is just like us. She's a mother, she's a grandmother, she cooks food in a kitchen, she laughs at herself, and all of these things are important. And it doesn't seem like that should be wisdom that is, that's not the esoteric part of the wisdom. That's common, everyday, cultural values in action. And the other 3 things that Clarissa started out teaching me that she learned from Jenny Flanault was when you go to weave, you need to have a clean mind, clean heart, and clean hands. And this is the part when it starts getting into the more esoteric part, okay? Because one of the things that everybody knows that has ever seen any of the old robes, whether they are currently being used in the cultural context, or the objects that are being held in museums, the one word that comes up over and over again is power. Power. There's power in these objects. Now, the weaver, if any of you heard my brief introduction, weavers are generally anonymous. And that too is part of our specialized teaching, is that we are to set our egos aside and to not get a big head. And that is part of having a clean mind, because it's in your mind and in your ego that you want to puff yourself up and go around and brag and say, oh, look what I did, oh, look what I did, ooh, I did that. And that's not what we're about, because these objects are objects of power. And we don't want to put the way I like to phrase it, is our itty-bitty egos in these objects of power. We just don't want to do that. It's not part of our culture. In our culture, we have communities. We don't necessarily have individuals. And this is another bit of the esoteric business. I always had a question of my elders of why did we convert to Christianity so easily? And do we have any inland Klingits in the room? No, not here. Well, oh, we do. Well, when I was up in Teslin, I visited with Matthew Tom. I stayed with him for a short while. He was teaching me traditional plant medicines, and I asked Matthew Tom this question. And he was able to answer it for me in a way that made perfect sense. He said it's because the Christian teaching of a man giving his life for somebody else was same. That's how he put it. It's same. The wisdom that is included in that of you love each other and you die for somebody else's sins is same as what happens in our culture. Same. And that makes perfect sense to me. And that too is part of the knowledge that you are not an individual. It isn't that one individual did something wrong and so it's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and that person did it and we're going to get revenge. That isn't what it's about. It's like it's the collective position. So if somebody did wrong to somebody and they were not full of knowledge, which again, it's the crossing of cultures, and there's been referred to as we have the nobility and the common people, but mostly it really refers to the educated people and the working class people, right? And so if it was somebody that had carrying the knowledge, which they spent a lifetime being taught and singled out, and in one family, like happened in my own family, there were brothers that one was chosen from a young age to be the clan leader and was set apart and taught knowledge. The other brothers were sent off to boarding school. Okay, so the brother that was supposed to be the clan leader, he died. He died. And all the knowledge that was given to him died with him. The other brothers stepped up to hold the position open, but they would tell you whenever you went to them and you wanted to know the answers, they would say, I don't know. I don't know. I was educated at school. It was my brother who was taught these things. And so that's why a person who would do wrong to somebody would, somebody else would step up and say, in order to make restitution for this, somebody of equal knowledge or equal position would have to make that restitution, and not just the working class person. And that's just a little bit of example of esoteric knowledge, okay? And so when we talk about having a clean mind, it's because our minds as human beings are the thing that sets us apart from every other being. Now we know in our culture that we are not really any different from our cousins in fur and feathers, which is exactly why that's the message that is in the so-called chilkat face. And I say so-called chilkat face because by now we all know that the term chilkat was just a tag-on by the Europeans that happened to collect their first one and write an academic paper about it, and they collected it at chilkat. So the label stuck. What we know as weavers is that the first robe was probably came from the Nass River. And here's just a little bit of teaser for the linguists in us, in our group, that the Nass River is symbolic of the river of life. And so the first robe in the stories, you can't always take everything literally. Things are metaphorical, and so there is at the beginning of life was what the story tells about. And so the shape of the robe is an inverted house because we have a balance in our culture. We are matched by our opposites. When we are alive in this life, we live and we breathe. When we die, we are still us, but now we're on the other side. We're on the other side. And so when we have a baby born amongst us, we rejoice. When we have somebody die amongst us, we grieve. On the other side, when they go to join the other side, our ancestors that are dwelling on the other side are rejoicing for the reunion of that spirit. We're grieving, they're rejoicing. And when the child is born on this side, we're rejoicing and they're grieving. And that's part of our culture. And so all of that is knowledge that is woven into the robe. Before we had language written in symbols, we had minds. We had feelings, we had emotions. And we wanted to answer, like human beings all over the planet, these metaphysical questions. And I looked up the word metaphysical to see what does that mean. And it means meta is the Greek for what follows after. And so we have the physical world, and then what follows after the physics of the world. Gravity, that's physics. Light and dark, that's physics. But what is it that makes us human? That's what follows after the physics of the world. And that knowledge is the knowledge that's contained in the robes. Every tiny bit that is passed down from tradition in the robes that we can learn from today, whether we had living teachers to pass it on to us, makes no difference. Just like I have words written on this paper here, that I can share this knowledge with you because I know how to read English. The same is true of the robes. If you know what you're looking at, you can decipher what it's telling you. And every tiny bit of it has meaning in a metaphysical sense in order to explain the unexplainable. In order to put words on why are we here? What is our purpose? What are we supposed to do with our life now that we're walking around living beings? And all of that is in there. There's science. There's in the choice of the colors in the robes. That's science. And you can go through and you can analyze the elements that are in it. And like for instance, in the yellow color, the yellow is made from the wolf moss, which incidentally grows in the area of the Nass River and not in the area of the Chilkat River. And the wolf moss is a parasitic moss that grows in pine trees that apparently lives on air. It doesn't really have roots. It just grows on the tree, and it shares the life of the tree, and it grows there. And all by itself, it makes the color, that brilliant Chilkat yellow color that we all adore so much. But this, again, is a little bit of the esoteric weaver's knowledge. Okay, in order to marry a color to the wool, you use a Morton, because otherwise it could be fugitive. And so, like the basket weavers can use berries to dye their bark, because we don't generally wash baskets. And so the color will stay stuck on it. But with the wool is a way different texture, and so for the color to stick to the wool, you need an in-between inner thing that's called a Morton. And so things that can be used for Mortons, pardon me, one of them is iron. And so in the black color, oftentimes iron was used. Now iron is also an element in what? Our blood? Okay. Hello, it's in our blood. Iron is in our blood. And so that was why the black iron-rich mud was used to make the black. Also the bark of the hemlock tree. Thank you. This is my daughter Yarrow prompting me from the sidelines here. And so the yellow wolf moss was the mordant that was used to set it into the wool was human urine, because of the ammonia works as a mordant. But it wasn't just any old human urine. It wasn't any old human urine. It was the ammonia. It was the first piss from the newborn baby, because the robe that was going to be woven to replace the robe that was wearing out and would be retired with the death of that current clan leader, and the robe would be replicated for the next clan leader. When that clan leader died, we knew that the next child being born was going to be the reincarnation of that clan leader. And so it was symbolic of the outside and the inside, as above, as below. And so they would capture the first pea, because when the baby is inside the womb, is swimming in the ammoniatic fluid. and drinks it and pees it right inside. Swallows it, goes through the digestive system, and goes in the womb. And so when it's born, that very first pee that they take is the fluid that they are floating in the outside, that they have taken into their inside, and now they are born and it comes outside. Okay, so this is why our robes contain power, because there's power in that. There's power. It's not just a notion. There's power in that. It has to do with the reincarnation in our bloodlines, carrying the wisdom of the ages from time immemorial is contained in that, and that is why that yellow color, why the urine, the human urine, is used as a Morton in that. And that's just an example of some of the esoteric knowledge that is contained in the wisdom of the weavers. Okay, so then we have a clean heart. And what does that mean about having a clean heart? And why do weavers hold themselves apart? And it's because everybody knows when you get angry and irritated, you emit vibrations. We not only are physical beings, but we are energetic beings. We not only have this direct physical reincarnation, but we also have our own energy that we bring that animates the current life that we are living. And so when a weaver is weaving, whether she's weaving cedar bark baskets, or she's weaving spruce root baskets, or she's weaving these objects that are going to be the gateway to the ancestors in ceremony, you don't want to put your own pet aggravation into it, because any person that comes along afterward is going to pick up that energetic vibration off of the object. And that also is why all of these objects that are made in a traditional way just emit power. And everybody, whether they're in our culture or outside our culture, that's the first thing. They're in awe of it. They're in total awe of it. They go, wow, there's so much power in that. And so that's part of the wisdom that we as weavers carry, that we need to keep our minds clear. We need to not put our ego in it. We don't do it to relieve our stress. We all experience stress. When you are experiencing stress, learn relaxation techniques. Breathe deep. Let it go. I had an elder who told me a really good way to relieve stress, which I was just, I was appalled. I was writing about weaving when I was at IAIA, and I made a quote from one of the Dowenhauer books, and my professor said, oh, that's not true. I've read all those books and it's not in there. Well, I believe it was a quote out of the 4th book, and she had only read 3 books. And so I knew I was right, but she thought she was right because it wasn't in what she had read. And it just stressed me out. It was like, how could she say that I'm wrong when I know I'm not wrong? Look, I have the book, I can prove it. And so I went to one of my elders, and I said, what do I do with all this stress? What do I do with the stress? And it was so simple. She said, go outside, open your arms and let the wind blow through you and let it blow it all away. And it's so simple. Even by taking our hands like this, anybody who's stressed, you'll notice you're gripping your hands, you're gripping your muscles. It's really easy. Just open your hands. Close them and open them. Everybody could do it right now while you're sitting there, and you'll notice your stress is just leaving, just by opening and closing your hands like that. And so that's some of the wisdom that I want to pass on. Now see, what I mean about wisdom, it's not anything, there is the esoteric portion, but then there's the wisdom portion. The wisdom portion is for all humans everywhere all the time. The esoteric part is, well, you know, how many people need to know that the Morton is made from the urine of the firstborn baby that is chosen to be the clan leader in a direct lineal descent. That's really privileged knowledge. And it's not secret knowledge, it's just knowledge that everyday human beings don't need to use every day in their everyday life. Okay, and so then the third point that Clarissa said was to have clean hands. And to have clean hands, to me, what that means to have clean hands is that you refrain from doing things like striking your children. You refrain from striking your children. You use your hands. Everything that you make with your hands, you're doing it with a good heart. You're doing it for a good purpose. You're doing it because it is going to last forever. Whether the actual object goes back to the elements that it came from, it still lasts forever. Because other people are going to touch it. What you touch, other people are going to touch. And so that's, in summary, of what the weavers need to know. And we have a clean mind, a clean heart, and clean hands. And that's about all I had more or less prepared to share with you. But I worked best actually by answering questions. And so I would just like to now open the floor to anybody who would like to ask any questions.